Okay, that goes pretty low. Alright, hey guys, so today we're going to be doing the front suspension. We're going to be putting in our Shockwave airbags, and what we're going to do, we're starting by popping off the wheel and tire. We've got this thing up on jack stands and a jack in the front because we want to have the back tires stationary, keeping everything in place, because we'll be kind of jostling the front end a little bit, and we're going to do it that way rather than trying to go up and down with the quick jacks. We don't want to risk having the levels go different, because ideally you need to drop them all the way down or go all the way up with them. So anyway, we got the front secured. We're going to pop this off. We're going to talk a bit today about how you go about cutting out the spring pockets and why that's so important. So we'll get into that here in just a few minutes. The first step is we're just going to pop this thing off of here, and then get a look at it, kind of test fit the Shockwave in there, and kind of see what we got to cut out. Alright, it's time to start marking this pocket. So when you're cutting out the spring pocket on an S10, you've got kind of an awkward oblong shape that's here. It's not this perfect symmetrical shape, but the most important thing is that you are cutting for more than adequate clearance of your bags. If it rubs, it will put a hole in it, and then your truck is coming down. So what we'll do, I got a wax pen here, and we'll just kind of make a rough outline on here of exactly where we're going to try and cut. You may have to trim back from there, but it'll at least kind of give you somewhere to start from, somewhere to reference while you're trying to cut it. We're going to use a combination of tools, kind of try out a couple of different things. We're going to try and do as much with the Sawzall as possible so that we aren't spraying hot metal crap everywhere. And also a Sawzall can let you kind of run a curve a little bit. If you have a really good quality body saw that can cut thicker steel like this, those work awesome, but they're spendy for a nice one. I don't have one of those guys. So we'll just go ahead and start marking it. So we're going to bring it all the way up to this weld, I think. So we're going to make a mark just below it. And if we got to shave further, then we can. So bring those marks up over the edge here, and then basically something like that to start with. Make absolute sure that you don't have sharp edges on this. If you've got a sharp point, you got a corner in here, that's a rip point. So steel will actually start to tear right there if you don't have a nice smooth curve. So just make sure whatever tool you're cutting with, that you're giving yourself room to shape that corner to be curved if you do cut it with a sharp corner. If that makes sense. So okay. moment of truth. Let's cut her out. Oh, on the back side, there's this little lip that's underneath here, and depending on which year of S10 you have, it looks like there's some differences with it. Ours curves down. It looks like on the paperwork that we got from Ride Tech, they've got a version that curves up just like the front does. This lip curves on the front, apparently curves on the back on some of them. So you might have a different shape. Ours curves down, and we're gonna just trim along that where there's like the two pieces are welded together. So the cross member is welded to the frame there. We're gonna trim it back to where the weld is. But we're not gonna trim into the weld. You gotta keep that in mind. So we'll start there and we'll see how it works. Okay, so we got the pockets trimmed out pretty damn good, and I think the next step now is to drill a hole for the top bolt for the shockwave. The stock size hole is quite a bit smaller than what it needs to be, so you got to drill it out to 3/4 of an inch. So grab a uni bit and start hogging her out. Okay, so it looks like we've got some spots to clearance on these. We kind of knew that going in, because you never really know the exact angle that the shock or the coilover, or in our case the shockwave, is going to be at, and then clearancing for the body is sort of a, you kind of got to do that after, unless you buy the actual Ride Tech ones. Then obviously there's our engineered, they got this stuff all already figured out. But because we had custom made arms, we knew that going into this there might be a little tiny bit of clearancing that will have to be done. So they're marked now, and we're gonna pop this out and put it up on the workbench and start, kind of sketching out where everything goes. And we'll actually attach the shockwave into the control arm and show you the arc that it does and why we're going to clearance it the way that we're going to. So let's pop these guys out. Okay, so the way that the clearancing is going to work is, all right, so we're going to just kind of toss this in here, and I'll show you guys the arc that it's on. Okay, so you can see that it only lets you tip back a little bit. Forward it goes quite a bit more. So we'll still clearance the front a little bit, but the back is where we're most concerned. On the back side, and you can get up close here and you can kind of see the lines that I did, we'll clearance it so that when this thing's at full droop, we know that it's not going to hit the bottom of the shockwave, because that would damage the aluminum. And I mean, you don't want your coilover or your shock body or whatever being the thing that stops the movement. That's going to screw it up pretty bad. So obviously we'll clearance for that. So you can see so what we'll do is we'll use a combination of tools. We'll probably do like a cutoff wheel, as well as like a flap disc, and just kind of smooth it out and make kind of a nice little arc. Try not to get too close to where the bolt and the washer are going to be, because you don't want to lose too much material. Like, he did use what looks like, oh boy, probably eighth inch or so, maybe 10 gauge. So it's pretty meaty stuff. So you can probably get that a pretty small arm, but we don't want to take too much off. We have to. We were pretty damn close to full droop anyways, because the upper control arms are what stops the movement downward anyways. That's sort of full droop. The top control arm is resting on the upper part of the frame. So we're pretty damn close, so we don't got clearance that much. But all right, let's start cutting away. Check these guys out. Look pretty good. Look pretty good. All right, nice. I think I'll probably shove a little grease in them and let's toss these on. Okay, airline time. And then the shockwaves are gonna get to go in and everything will be greased and final bolted down. So with a shockwave, you only have 1/4 inch lines. That's just kind of how it works. Sounds like 1/4 inch is just the most appropriate for this. They don't want air moving in too fast, I guess. Don't know a ton about the rationale, but I'm not gonna argue with it. I don't need the car to bounce. So airline's gonna run. We'll cover the specifics in another video, but how we're gonna do this is we're gonna run the lines in through this hole here. How well you guys can see that, a little hole, yay. And have it run up through here, through these little pockets. We're gonna, of course, kind of put some sort of a shield over it so it doesn't rub through. I'm gonna be running more spacers on this, otherwise a lower back-spaced, lower offset wheel. That way pushes it out a little bit more, so I shouldn't be as concerned with clearance in here. It should be all right. So I think that's the plan. We're gonna try to run it up through there, inside. Again, we'll cover the more details on that in another video, but right now it is time to get these shockwaves in, that line connected, bolt everything down, grease it, and move on to the other side. All right, cut your air line. Make sure that it is square. That's why they send you this nice cutting tool. So cut it square every single time. And make sure there's no gunk on the end of it. Otherwise, these push locks won't seal right. There we go. Bump stops. We got clearance. Time for the passenger side. This is the exciting part. Let's see what this thing does sitting on the bump stops. Damn. Okay, that goes pretty low. Gotta like put jacks on each side and see how much lower she'll go. Lower does she go? Okay. One stop. Bump stop. Now is that fenders? Okay, it's not inner fenders. Damn. Oh man, that is low. Oh. That is what I'm talking about. Okay, this is awesome. I mean, I have been so excited about finally getting to drop this thing down onto the bump stops and see what it looks like. And yeah, this is exactly what I was hoping it was going to look like. It's really kind of the ride height I was hoping it was going to be. So a couple of really interesting things that I discovered with this exact setup. So the inner fender structure, usually you have to get rid of those things if you go all the way down to the frame on them. But with my setup, I have like 1/2 inch of space where it's sitting on the bump stops right now, 1/2 inch of space so it's not actually touching the inner fenders. So that's super cool. I was a little worried about what that was going to be like once this thing was fully dropped down. And yeah, this is great, because then I'm not having to worry about when I air it down, is it going to be pressing up on the inside of these fenders, which would be real bad. That'd be pulling on steel. So perfect. So what we've got here, just to kind of recap what we installed today, we've got custom built lower control arms that are built by Cody Smith of Cody Smith Motorsports. Those have I want to say that we put an 1.25 or 1.5 drop into the mounting location. So where on the factory arm, well, the factory mounting location is where the shock bolts on, basically. So we went about 1.25 below that for the center line of the bolt for a coilover or for the shockwave in this case. So that's the static drop that we've got. We've got an 1.25 static drop. From that, we've got a 2-inch drop in the drop spindles. Now, that, with hitting the bump stops, this is where it sits. So why I'm so stoked about this, besides the clearancing and the inside of the inner fender, is also like shockwaves just don't have as much travel as a conventional double bellow bag does. because it's all like one internal piece. It's, you know, you got the bags attached to the shock. There's just not as much travel you can build into that entire system because there's just constraints in literally the size of the shock inside. But that's fine because the trade-off is you've got Fox shocks with a bag wrapped around it. So you've got awesome performance. That's what I was going for. So I'm going to check and see once I'm able to put air into the system, what's going to be the ride height on it. They say it's about 85 to 100 PSI. In that range is about where you can expect to have your ride height with these particular shockwaves. So we'll look at that. We'll see how much room that gives us, ground clearance and that sort of thing, suspension components, like kind of what angle everything's at in the arc. And then decide if I want to try and go lower and, you know, if I can get away with going any lower for that matter. But that's also going to be a little bit of a domino effect because then we're going to have to look at doing something different with the inner fenders. That's a can of worms I'm not sure I'm ready to open up. So it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm really stoked. This is going to be fine for a season or 2 seasons or 10 seasons. I don't know. We'll see how it drives. We'll worry about it at that point. But this is awesome. I wish Donnie could be here. He's, if you're following on the podcast, we had explained here that recently he got the Rona, so he's been kind of on the mend for a few days, and then there's of course like the whole, you know, we've got to keep our distance for a little while, and whatever. So I'm bummed because I really wanted him to be here because this is one of those things you want to share with a good buddy, kind of a little bit of a win like this. So I guess I get to share it with you guys. So hey, thanks for tuning in for another Dad Mods episode. On the next video, we're going to be looking at doing the air management because I want to get this front end going up and down and making sure I don't have leaks and stuff because we've only got like a month and a half before the big car show that this thing's going to be in. So I'm pretty excited. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys hopefully next week with another video. It'll probably be something BMW related. Might also be the quick jacks that we picked up. So anyway, bye guys.